John Oliver, an alleged comedian, a British fella, he wants Clarence Thomas off the Supreme Court, and he's willing to put up some money to do it.
From stripping away women's rights to January 6th cases you definitely shouldn't be hearing, to potentially helping roll back decades of federal regulations. And you deserve a break, away from the meanness of Washington, so you can be surrounded by the regular folks whose lives you've made demonstrably worse for decades now. And the good news is, I think we can help you there, because since your favourite mode of travel might be in need of an upgrade, we are excited to offer you this brand new, top-of-the-line Prevost Marathon motor coach. Look at this beauty, Clarence. $1 million a year, Clarence, and a brand new condo on wheels. And all you have to do in return is sign the contract and get the off the Supreme Court.
So Clarence Thomas likes to travel around the country in RVs. It's actually really charming. This is a guy who is at the pinnacle of the legal profession. He could go on really, really fancy vacations, but he doesn't want to do that. He wants to travel around America with his wife, and it's a lovely thing. And John Oliver is saying, yeah, well, now listen here, Governor. Yeah, you're going to get off the court, and we'll give you a better RV, and you get the F off the court. Which is I'm going to deconstruct this joke for you. You see, the way that John Oliver tells jokes is he yells a statement, but then puts the F word in it. You see, this is a similar style to comedy that you see from Jon Stewart, to a lesser degree Stephen Colbert, from most of the liberals now. You see, back in the old days, I was a history major in college. Back in the old days, a joke was considered to be a humorous utterance. It's when you would say words that in combination would induce laughter in people. Today, what passes for a joke is when a liberal yells the F word really loudly. That's it. So just a completely unfunny statement, get off the Supreme Court. You say, get the F off the court! And then the clapping seals in John Oliver's audience giggle about it. The liberals have always had a very special hatred for Clarence Thomas. Speaking of racial politics, it's because he's a black guy, because he was supposed to be a liberal because he's black, but he's not a liberal, so they call him all sorts of nasty names, and they particularly hate him. They hate him more than they hate Alito. They hate him more than they hate Amy Barrett. They hate him more than they hate Gorsuch, certainly. They hate him more than they even hate Brett Kavanaugh. It's Thomas that they hate. And they hate him because he's rock-ribbed and principled, and especially because he's black. The irony of this bit, though, is they're all trying to insinuate that Clarence Thomas has somehow broken the law. He hasn't in any way. But as they are doing this, as they're making their supposed jokes, they themselves are breaking the law. John Oliver just broke a federal law because he's trying to bribe a federal judge, which is a very serious crime. And so what I'm hoping for here, obviously, one hopes and one expects that Clarence Thomas will not step down from the Supreme Court to go RV around the country. He'll probably stay on that court until his final breath. Then one hopes that Trump really does have a chance and he really can win. And then Trump appoints a good attorney general. And then the future Trump DOJ prosecutes this limey lunatic, John Oliver, for violating federal law. That would be delightful. John Oliver is not the only liberal comedian, Daily Show alum who is losing it these days. Stephen Colbert just seemed to break character. He broke his comedic character, such as it is, to give a very serious message to the American people.
I know how numb we've become, but it's not normal. No other candidate for the presidency has ever had to pause his campaign to defend himself in multiple courts. And I would like to point out that in all 7 of his cases, no one doubts that he did these things. We're just sitting around patiently waiting to find out if the wheels of justice will grind fast enough for there to be any consequences. And the media is covering it like it's any other political story, like it's all horse race.
Is there a joke anywhere in there? There isn't. It's not even the liberal fake joke where you just make angry statements and yell the F word. There's no joke. He's just saying, this isn't normal. This isn't normal. I hate Trump. I hate him so much. The joke is that I hate him so much, but it's not a joke to me. I'm really angry. A sign of madness, a sure sign of madness, is when people lose their sense of humor. There's a great line from G.K. Chesterton who says, "The angels can fly because they can take themselves lightly." You don't want to make yourself a clown. You don't want to degrade yourself like those people who committed sacrilege at St. Patrick's Cathedral. But you don't need to take yourself so seriously all the time. You don't need to walk around all dour and angry and yelling and screaming and pulling your hair out. It's a fallen world. Bad things happen. We do our best to encourage good things to happen. We hope and we pray and we have faith and we have charity toward our fellow man. And just, lighten up, bro. But these people can't lighten up because they have been driven insane, because they have been driven mad. Some people are driven mad by their sexual passion, as we talked about earlier in the show. Some people are driven mad by their political activism. Some people are driven mad by their obsessiveness over temporal matters. Some people are driven mad by their tastes and their appetites and all sorts of things. Don't get driven mad. You end up making a total fool of yourself, like Mr. Colbert. Now, speaking of trying to get rid of people, a major geopolitical story that not a lot of people noticed over the weekend, which is that Alexei Navalny, who was the opposition leader in Russia, he wasn't super popular, but if Russia had an opposition leader, it was Alexei Navalny. He was killed in a Russian prison. Not surprising. The fact that he lived this long is what's actually surprising. The Putin regime pretty clearly tried to kill him earlier when he was abroad. They tried to poison him with Novichok nerve agent, which they've used on other dissidents, and it didn't work. But then Navalny, quite heroic, he goes back to Russia knowing that he's going to be arrested and almost certainly killed. And then he gets arrested and he's brought up on trumped up charges. Now he's dead. The timeline here begins, oddly enough, he and I kind of intersected at one point because when I was an undergraduate in school, Alexei Navalny was a Yale World Fellow. He was there right around the same time that Vivek Ramaswamy was there. A lot of J.D. Vance was there around. It was kind of an interesting moment when there were a lot of, I guess there are always a lot of political people around those schools. But he was there in 2010. He ran for mayor of Moscow in 2013 and got 27% of the vote. So not a ton, but he was still a leader. 2018, he was barred from running for president by Putin. Then 2020, he was poisoned with the Novichok. 2021, he goes back to Russia. He gets arrested. 2022, he has his sentence enhanced. And 2023, he goes missing for 3 weeks. He ends up in an Arctic gulag. And then early 2024, he is killed. Very sad. The man believed in something and he showed a lot of courage. And I think some people are going to try to portray him as a kind of a squish and a lib. He was not a squish and a lib. Certainly, he was a pretty hardcore nationalist. He softened some of his political views later on, but he was a Russian politician, and Russian politics doesn't map that neatly onto American politics. But all of that to say, most people don't really care about the inner political fighting in other countries, even when it involves things like assassinations. And I get why they don't care. There are only so many things we can worry about, and we're much more focused on our own politics. But that's actually why I bring up this story, because the basic summary of what happened to Alexei Navalny is that Vladimir Putin arrested the leader of the political opposition and let him die in prison. And that is precisely what our government is trying to do right now. No difference whatsoever. Our government right now is trying to has arrested the leader of the political opposition, the undisputed leader of the political opposition, much more popular than in our country than Navalny ever was in his country, has had a much more official role in our country, obviously, because President Trump was the president already, than a mere opposition leader in a foreign country. They've arrested him. They are prosecuting him on extraordinarily trumped up charges, ridiculous stuff. I mean, you just look at the documents case. The federal government has just come out and said, we are not going to charge Joe Biden, even though he did a much more egregious version of the crime that we're trying to charge Donald Trump for and to send him to prison where he can die. They were trying to send him to prison for hundreds and hundreds of years. The man is not a spring chicken. He acts like it, but he's not chronologically a spring chicken. They are trying to imprison the leader of the political opposition in the United States and to allow him to die in prison. No difference. So I have a great deal of sympathy for Alexei Navalny and his family and the Russians who supported him and all the rest. I have more sympathy. I have empathy, actually, for our own country, for what's going on here. Because, there's that good old blues song, before you accuse me, take a look at yourself. Much more urgent, much more dire political problem to see what we are doing here. Man, what a great clip that was. Now, hold up, ring that bell, subscribe to the Michael Knowles YouTube channel, and we will see you next time.